We can't just have a normal week here in Canada. Every single day I wake up and I think the same thing. Maybe today it'll just be a calm day. But no, that's not the case. We're actually experiencing a massive port strike here in Canada that's costing over $1 billion daily, and the government's response is, of course, inadequate. So we're going to be starting off top heavy. We're going to take a look at that right out the gate, and then we're going to take a look at what Trump's latest White House pick, individual person, I'm not sure exactly what his position is, what he has to say about Canada, because he's not a fan of Justin Trudeau. In fact, most American politicians are not a fan of Justin Trudeau, but he's quite literally picked out Pierre and said, hey, look at this guy. He wants Trudeau out. I like that guy. He's doing a good job of destroying him in that parliamentary debate process. That's pretty awesome. And then you have Elon Musk, who also, throws a little punches, throws some online digital punches at Justin Trudeau, or a radical climate activist, Stephen Guilbeault. He's got something to say about climate change. And then, of course, how our Canadian forces is at an all-time low because people just don't want to be joining our military. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I do want to encourage you all to smash the like button and subscribe if you haven't yet already. It does really help grow the channel. And without further ado, let's get into it. Of course, we're going to start off with the polls, how I normally like to do things here. 215 projected seats for Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives. He only needs 172 for a majority, so he is looking awesome. Awesome numbers. Then you got Justin Trudeau and the Liberals at 64 projected seats. I suspect before Christmas that'll drop back down into the 50s. And then Jagmeet Singh went from 22 back down to 18, so that's not looking too good for him. And then you've got 99% likely across the board for Pierre Poilievre for winning the most seats and odds of a majority government. So that's looking awesome right there. What's not looking so good is this entire port strike and what this actually means for Canada's economy. So let's take a look at what's going on.
Supply chain experts are warning of the domino effect that will ripple through the Canadian economy as labor disputes halt the flow of goods in and out of the country's two most important trade ports. Traffic at the Port of Montreal came to a halt Sunday night when the Employers Association locked out nearly 1,200 longshore workers. The Port Authority says this disruption also impacts more than 10,000 workers in the logistics sector, from trucking and rail to maritime agents and pilots. The Canadian Union of Public Employees says members voted 99.7% to reject the Maritime Employers Association's latest proposal. CUPE says it will accept the same wage increases granted to its counterparts in Halifax or Vancouver, 20% over 4 years. Major concerns also include scheduling and work-life balance. The employer is calling on the federal labor minister to step in.
And to be honest, man, 20% over 5 years or 4 or 5 years, that's 5% per year. That barely scrapes the surface of inflation. Like, this is what's gone on in Canada, not just with the ports, but jobs in general, is inflation skyrocketed, ballooned, right? 7, 8, 9%, whatever number you want to use, it was out of control. And even though the government now brags about the fact that inflation is under 2%, I think they're claiming, the damage has already been done. Blueberries are already 25% more expensive than they were 4 or 5 years ago. Our wages have not even gone up 3, 4, 5% in that same amount of time. So everybody is lagging behind, and it's not good. It's really not good. So, I mean, this is why you're going to see a lot more strikes, not just with port workers, but people in general. They're not happy here in Canada.
Stephen McKinnon tweeted Friday that he's monitoring negotiations. He says both sets of talks are progressing at an insufficient pace, indicating a concerning lack of urgency.
Trade is our economic lifeline. Trade is what drives our economy. We keep seeing repeatedly over the last number of years snags that are affecting our ability to get our products to market.
The labor dispute in Vancouver, Canada's busiest port, is already wreaking havoc on about $800 million worth of activity per day. And all of this comes on the heels of rail strikes and the threat of a looming Canada Post strike, dealing one economic blow after another to businesses across the country and harming Canada's reputation as a reliable trade partner.
Yeah, it's not good. So now we're going to take a look at Steve McKinnon and what he's got to say about it, because he just did a press conference like a couple hours ago.
So today, I have invoked my authorities under the Canada Labour Code. Under Section 107 of the Code, I've directed the Canada Industrial Relations Board to order that all operations and duties at the ports resume, and to assist the parties in settling their collective agreements by imposing final and binding arbitration. This will bring the necessary resolutions for both workers and employers. I have also directed the board to extend the terms of the existing collective agreements until new ones are established. There will be a debate about this. The second.
So they did this, if I'm not mistaken, with the railway shutdown, which seems to be similar to how this is going on. It's the leaders are just shutting things down, saying, yeah, no, we're not dealing with, missed income or lack of wages. And the government had the same response with the rails, if I'm not mistaken. This just happened like a couple of months ago, where they said, oh, you want to go on strike? Yeah, no, we're the government. You're not allowed to strike. So in Canada, if you go on a strike, the government can just quite literally step in and say, yeah, Uno reverse card, you're no longer allowed to strike, get back to work. That is kind of scary. I'm not saying that it's a good thing that we've gone on strike. I'm not saying that it's a good thing that he's forcing people back to work. I'm just saying that's kind of a whack process.
Such use of this instrument to settle a long-standing labor dispute. I welcome that debate. These work stoppages, are impacting our supply chain, hundreds of thousands of Canadian jobs, our economy, and our reputation as a reliable and international trading partner. We rely on the movement of goods through our ports. If these work stoppages go on, the impacts will only worsen, and our well-earned reputation for reliability will be put at risk. Because of these impasses, more than $1.3 billion in value of goods is affected every day. Canada's economy is taking a hit. Farmers, small businesses, manufacturers, retailers, families. The list goes on of those already feeling the impacts. Not only that, but also thousands of hardworking Canadians could be laid off if this continues, including thousands of union workers. 200 in one company, 350 in another, and that weeks before Christmas. For example, a company reached out to me yesterday and told me that because they have no vehicles left on the dock and they haven't had a vessel in a week, they will have to make layoffs as soon as today. They added that customers are ripping up their contracts and going elsewhere, U.S. West Coast, U.S. East, Gulf Coast. This is happening all across the country. It's certainly not something I take lightly. My belief and the government's belief in collective bargaining and in the fact that collective agreements that are reached at the bargaining table are the most durable agreements it is possible to conclude, that has not changed. However, when mediators, who are among, it should be said, the best in the world, inform me in 3 different circumstances that we are at a total impasse and the way forward is not clear, the duration of the disputes is not clear, and there is real economic, health, and other risks posed to Canadians, then that I take that responsibility extremely seriously. And Canadians, as I said, have limited tolerance right now for economic self-harm. In the case of these 3 disputes, we have over 2 years on average worth of negotiations to point to. Mediators spend days and days and weeks with these parties. Offers are tabled. It is not for me to determine the terms of any collective agreement. I am merely cheering for an agreement. But the fact is that employers and employees sit down for marathon bargaining sessions. And unfortunately, in these cases, they've gone nowhere. So as the economic losses threaten the country and begin to mount, it is up to the government to ensure that a fair settlement's reached. Arbitration leads to fair settlements, maybe not as durable as those that are reached at the bargaining table, and that we can get on with the economic life of this country and avoid layoffs and other carnage in many of our commercial sectors and for workers and their families. Concluded deals too. We concluded deals with the Air Canada pilots in the grain terminals on the West Coast, and Prince Rupert just ratified. We concluded deals with the Videotron workers that had gone on for a great many months. So deals are getting reached at the bargaining table. Deals are getting reached even in the logistics and transportation sector. But no deal, according to the experts who are accompanying these parties, is possible in the short or medium term in the present circumstance. So when Canada's economy, Canadians' health is threatened, any responsible government has to step in.
And unfortunately, we're stuck with a irresponsible and incompetent government that people are just not trusting. I mean, you see this in the opinion polls. You see this with online rhetoric everywhere you go, even the mainstream media saying, I think it's time for a change. And especially when it comes to negotiating these types of strikes that have a $1 billion per day impact on our Canadian economy, the Liberals are just not the people for the job. But you don't have to take my word on that. Let's actually take a look at an analyst here who discusses how this port strike could be extremely troubling for Justin Trudeau's government.
Because these negotiations have been underway for a year. Canada Post now is kind of chronically underwater because of the competition that's out there for parcel delivery and everything else, and the diminution of sort of traditional letter delivery, right? So, I mean, how many of us get checks in the mail now, and write grandma anymore, right? So
it started with a rail strike like two months-ish, a month and a bit ago. Then it's a port strike simultaneous with a Canada postal nationwide postal service strike, which is just insane. That's insane. Like we're getting hit on all fronts here, all at the same time. My goodness.
All of that means that Canada Post corporately has been saying, listen, we have to compete. We have to be able to do same-day delivery on the weekends. Union says no. They've been at a deadlock. Now they issue a 72-hour strike warning. And they say we may not invoke it within 72 hours. Well, what's coming up? Christmas.
Exactly.
What do you get at Christmas? Parcels. Yeah. And so they're really trying to use their leverage to force the corporation into a movement. If they end up on strike, if this thing grinds to a halt, then the pressure shifts to the federal government. Do they force them back to work? Do they legislate them back to work? If so, under what terms? All of this, you think about the port strike. Yeah. Again, labor issues in the aftermath of the pandemic, with wage inflation demands, it's a constant pressure, and this is the kind of pressure that the federal government, that's deep underwater, politically unpopular, does not want. They do not want to be the Grinch at Christmas. They don't want to be the guys defending that they're not forcing them back to work, and they don't want to be the guys that are forcing them back to work. Plus, the NDP have said don't do it. Yeah. And who are the Liberals relying upon solely now to save their butts in Parliament and keep them from an election? The NDP. Tricky politics coming up on this.
Wow.
Yeah, for sure. We'll continue to watch that one. And Scott, turning to the Liberals on the provincial level, we know Liberal leader Bonnie Crombie, she's set to make her first major campaign announcement this morning at a restaurant. But
I honestly don't care what's going on with the Liberals at the municipal level. Look, they're failing across the board, and Canadians are just waiting. I think we have a lot of envy. At least I personally have a lot of envy and jealousy that America got to experience their election. It's done. It's over with. It's like doing a presentation in school, in high school, and your friends go first and you're like, oh crap, now I got that pent up, like almost anxiety waiting to go and do the presentation, right? The final test. That's kind of what we're experiencing right now here in Canada. At least that's just my interpretation of it, but that's my own personal opinion. I would love to know yours. And then we got to take a look at what's going on with Americans. Specifically, this top Trump White House pick has a strong view on Canada's government, and it's not flattering. Trump's reported choice for national security advisor can't wait to see the Liberals lose in the next election. The man reportedly tapped for top international role inside the Trump White House isn't just predicting the defeat of Canada's Justin Trudeau. he's already celebrating it. Mike Waltz has a vast digital footprint on international issues in his 6 years as a congressman, following careers in business, defense policy, and as a decorated Special Forces veteran. He's been selected by Donald Trump for the powerful position of National Security Advisor in the next White House. A multitude of U.S. media outlets reported Monday evening, though Trump did not publicly comment on any of these reports. And this is kind of one thing that I really appreciate about America is they have a lot of veterans and past serving members at all different ranks and different levels of the military. Canada, on the other hand, does not really have that. I mean, there's a couple MPs in there that, you know, were in the military, but not special forces, not Marine equivalents, like not badasses, not killers with common sense. You got like, you know, lieutenants and captains that, you know, barely got their boots dirty, and that was it. Just pencil pushers and order people that make orders, right? They boss people around, and that's fine. Someone has to do that, absolutely, but not in the trenches types of dudes, right? Unless I could be mistaken. Maybe there are a couple of those people in America, or in Canada, sorry, but in America we don't have that. I mean, for crying out loud, this guy's an ex-Special Forces. Canada does not have that. I mean, not even close. And so I think that it'd be kind of cool if you saw a little bit more ex-servicemen in Canadian Parliament. His online commentary emphasizes his views that U.S. allies must pull their weight on security issues, including with regards to China, which he views as a serious national security threat. Waltz predicts liberals will lose the next election. Spoiler alert, so does Elon Musk. His unflattering opinion of the Trudeau government is manifest in a string of social media comments over the years, including one happily predicting its demise in the next election. Earlier this year, he posted a video from Canada's Question Period where opposition leader Pierre ridiculed Trudeau's housing policies. This guy is going to send Trudeau packing in 2025, finally, and start digging Canada out of the progressive mess it's in. Waltz posted on the X social media platform. His trolling of Trudeau's nonsense is worth a watch. All right, let's take a look at this Question Period clip.
We're leveraging transit funding to build more homes. We're launching a housing design catalog.
He's announcing a catalog, everybody. Hey, right on. Give him a round of applause. Come on, give him a round of applause.
Look at that.
You can't afford a home. You might end up in a tent. Your rent is doubled. But hey, you've got a brand new catalog. Mr. Speaker, the question was, will he build 550,000 new homes, yes or no?
And the answer is no. I mean, of course, Justin Trudeau can't live up to that expectation to fix Canada by any means. But nonetheless, that's kind of cool. And I'd love to know your guys' opinion on that. And then we got to take a look at what Elon Musk said about Justin Trudeau, but not from CBC, not from an American TV station. It's actually being covered on Indian news, which is just crazy that you can actually get Canadian news from India news, and it's usually more up to date and a lot more relevant in the Trudeau bashing than any mainstream media Canadian outlet. But here we go.
A brewing international debate, one that's made headlines across North America and Europe, and it's all over social media. It began with a post from none other than Elon Musk, the tech billionaire and CEO of Tesla and SpaceX. In response to a tweet about Germany's recent government struggles, Musk did not hold back, calling German Chancellor Olaf Scholz a fool. That comment alone set the tone for Musk's latest round of outspoken critiques. But it did not stop in Germany. When asked by a follower for help in getting rid of Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, Musk did not hesitate and said that Trudeau will be gone in the upcoming election. Now, it's worth noting this is not Musk's first time calling out Trudeau. Last year, when the Canadian government imposed regulatory controls on streaming services, Musk labelled it an attempt to crush free speech. His concerns only grew when Trudeau invoked emergency powers in 2022 during truck demonstrations against vaccine mandates, a move Musk compared to tactics used by historical authoritarian regimes.
And there is speculation. There's no real evidence to back this up, but people have done a deep dive on this, that during the Freedom Convoy, the website liar.com gets brought to Justin Trudeau's Wikipedia. And people have done a deep dive on this, and the consensus is that Elon Musk owns that domain, which is crazy. I mean, whoever changed liar.com, bought that and redirected it to Justin Trudeau is just awesome in pretty much all of our books. But again, that's my own personal opinion, and I would love to know yours. And then we got to take a look here at our radical climate activist, Stephen Guilbeault, and what he's saying about climate change in Canada.
It has been the hottest year on record. The world is experiencing floods, wildfires, and food scarcity. Are we doing enough to save the planet?
No, we're not. Things are improving because of the work we're collectively doing. The forecast for the coming decades in terms of temperature increase is better than it was 10 years ago, but there's still much more that needs to be done.
Okay, and this year's COP29 summit is geared toward climate financing and providing money to developing countries to tackle climate costs. Yes. What can we expect to come out of this meeting, and what is Canada's pledge?
So Canada's played a very important role in terms of working with nations like the European Union, Japan, the United States in for the last many years in helping to mobilize more than $100 billion to help developing countries adapt to climate change and face the impacts of climate change, and also do the transition that many of us are doing. Now, the discussion this year is what will be the new international goal in terms of how much money we need to mobilize to continue supporting developing countries. And some people who are watching might say, well, why should we be doing that? There's a number of reasons why we should be doing that. First and foremost, the more we help them, the less some of those people will want to come to our countries because of climate impacts and because it's becoming more and more difficult to live in their countries. Second, often those economic opportunities that are developed will be done in partnership between local companies, local communities in these countries, and Canadian companies and Canadian initiatives. So it's a win-win on both sides. So there are a number of reasons why it's important for us to be collectively contributing to support people in the South to adapt and better prepared to face climate change.
And on that note, you mentioned that more can be done to save our planet. So what is Canada's overall commitment to fight climate change, and how has that progress been so far?
Canada is committed to taxing to death all of its citizens in the hopes that our 1.5% of global emissions contribution, but 100% of tax paying to fight climate change apparently is going to fix the weather around the world, because there's a dome, or there isn't a dome. I'm very confused by this liberal logic that surrounds just Canada. And so if we stop our emissions here, it'll stop tsunamis in Taiwan or China. I don't know. It's crazy, man. None of this makes any sense. None of this makes any sense. I feel crazy when I watch these videos because they think that it makes sense. And I know it doesn't make sense without looking at any online comments. And then I see the comments and everyone else is like, hey, man, this shit doesn't make sense either. And I just feel like we're being gaslit into oblivion. And it makes me angry. It makes me angry that they would get up on these national platforms and use these press conferences and use their platforms to try and say, we need to fix the weather by taxing it. And we're going to make life shit for you and everybody you know. But don't worry. It's part of the greater good. Right? It's part of the plan. What plan? What plan, man? I don't want to have to worry about bills the way we do every single day. I want my kids, my young kids to be able to afford a house when they're older. Like, come on. This is craziness.
Canada doesn't have the best story to tell over the last 30 years in terms of fighting climate change. This has started changing over the last few years. In fact, it's the first time in our history, Amandalina, that we're seeing the economy roaring full steam ahead in the country and our pollution levels going down. This has never happened before. Now we need to do more, and it's a result of a number of things we're doing, putting a price on pollution, putting in place measures to ensure that by 2035, all of the cars sold in Canada will have to be zero-emission vehicles, so either electric vehicles, hydrogen vehicles, working to make sure industries like what we're seeing on those type of industries we're seeing on screen are doing their fair share when it comes to reducing their level of pollution, which is why last week in Canada, we announced that we would be putting a cap, a ceiling, if you wish, on the pollution levels of the oil and gas sector, which is our largest contributor in Canada to climate change.
Okay, and this brings me to the carbon tax. It has been a topic of political debate here in Canada. How do you see this conversation shaping up in the future?
No, access tax.
Well, what we're seeing is that globally, more and more countries are adopting a form or another of price on pollution. 3 years ago, it was only about 20% of the world that had a form of pollution pricing in place. We're now almost at 25%. So it's growing. There are an increasing number of countries and states and provinces around the world adopting carbon pricing. It is one of the best tools we have to fight pollution. It's not the only one. In Canada, we're deploying more than 140 measures to tackle the climate crisis, but putting a price on pollution is one of the best ways. One of the unique things of the Canadian model is that all of the revenues that are generated from putting a price on pollution are returned to Canadians, either to households, to small and medium-sized businesses, municipalities, and Indigenous communities.
Fake news, never been faker. That's absolutely crazy. Look, I've done independent polls here. It doesn't matter the political bias, because a tax is a tax. I've done independent polls on this channel that have gotten 40, 50, 60, 70,000 votes. And hey, do you get more out of the carbon tax than what you put in? And 8 out of 10 people say, no, we don't. We pay more than what we get back. And so they're lying. They've got the numbers mixed up. They're literally lying. They are like knowingly lying that most Canadians, when you pay your heating, when you pay for your gas, when you go to the grocery store and you buy your food and it's got a higher price because the distributors are having to price in the price of carbon tax, so prices go up. But apparently this tax plan is so good and so profitable for Canadians. I don't understand how that makes sense. I don't understand how that makes sense. There was nothing else there. I really set that up like there was going to be a punchline, but no, that kind of deflated real fast. Now that was kind of awkward. Let's not do that one again. But nonetheless, what I'm trying to say is that it's just blatant lies. They are lying to us, saying, "Hey, it's not raining outside." And you look out your window, you're like, "Oh, it's really raining outside." Like, oh, how can you say it's not raining? Or there's a fire, and they're like, no, there's no fire there. It's okay, man. It's just the trees, man. They're just happy. They're just really excited. And it's like, no, that's a fire. I don't understand how politicians can lie. It's not like clickbaiting. It's not like a little white lie. It's not bending the truth a little bit. It's just like straight up lying. It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. That's why a lot of people are just fed up with this government. Absolutely fed up. They're not normal people. They're not regular normal people. These people are sadistic. They're borderline sociopaths. I'm sure if they were tested, there'd probably be a tiny bit of sociopathic, traits in there. Now let's take a look at how Canadian Forces is failing. And we got no people. We got no people in the military. We have no defense budget. We just have uniforms. That's it. That's it.
A motto that at one time had more people lining up to enlist. Now the military struggles to significantly increase its numbers, faced with challenges in recruitment and retention. The regular force is nearly 64,000. That's more than 7,000 short of what's authorized. Add to that the shortfall in reservists, and the military is roughly 15,000 off its target.
The Chief of Defence Staff is absolutely seized on this. She has convened a working group. She meets with all the key players in recruiting, attractions, training, and retention. It is probably the largest challenge facing us right now. There are challenges to the international rules-based order, no matter where you look across the world right now. And it's a dangerous time. And I believe that the Canadian Armed Forces are up to the task, but we need to be filled with people in order to really execute on those tasks.
The Armed Forces has tried to modernize its recruitment process, evolving dress requirements and fostering more inclusiveness, at the same time committing to overhauling the military culture and better the response to sexual misconduct allegations. Building back its force size is a priority as it seeks a wider audience of prospective members.
This is for you.
New recruitment ideas like the Naval Experience Program, a year of training with no strings attached, is showing success. The Navy recently toured communities throughout the Great Lakes to help people envision this career and lifestyle.
It's a complex problem, so a multivariable problem, if you will. We need people seeing themselves in the military. We need to do a much, much better job of attracting and recruiting them, so signing them up to the military. We need to do better at training.
People just aren't patriotic. They are not patriotic to a country that's taxed them to death, that is forcing them to get certain medical, you know what I'm saying? They're not patriotic to a country that's extremely woke. They're not patriotic to a country that it just doesn't respect them, the tax-paying, law-abiding citizens. I'm not saying that you don't like Canada and that you aren't patriotic. I'm patriotic. I absolutely love Canada. But I'm saying that the hoorah that Canada should have, that any country should have, it's not really there. It's like a hoorah. It's just very deflated. We're a deflated balloon right now. But I think that with a change of government, with the right leaders in there to not only represent us here within our borders, but represent us on the global stage, fix our reputation, scrap a lot of the woke stuff, make life a little bit more affordable, right? So that we can go buy houses, that we can do car rides. For crying out loud, in the summertime, you had the liberal government say, if you go in your car and you go on a road trip, you are burning the planet. And any forest fire is your fault. Who the hell is going to then say, yeah, I love this country and our politicians. I'm so excited, in fact, that I want to join the military. That's just not a thing that you're going to say. So if you don't respect, if we're not getting respect from our politicians, if we're not doing good economically, people just aren't going to want to join the forces to represent Canada's values and have one of the most like honorable jobs in Canada, being a serving member and protecting Canada. That's my own personal opinion, and I'd absolutely love to know yours. This is the end of the video, everybody. If you haven't yet already, I'd like to encourage you guys to smash the like button and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.